Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Here is an insight into the events behind the 1983 to 1987 Gukurahundi from some of the main players at the time. The late Dr. J Nkomo and the late Robert Mugabe himself.
I have suffered, I have worked so hard for this country before independence, during the war. I worked so hard after independence to make our independence stick. And this man today turns around and he calls me a traitor. Me, a traitor, a man who worked for this country so much. There is no insult to beat this one. As long as dissidents come from a particular area, we will send troops to that area. I've never done anything wrong, and Robert knows it. I told you this is for personal power. Let him stand up and deny it. This is for personal power. He's frightened of my stature. He's frightened that he will not win the next election. This is what he's doing, trying to smear me. It's very, very sly, very dirty. Don't expect of anybody who is supposed to be prime minister of a country.
Mr. Nkomo emphasized that he did not consider himself an exile and that his intention was to return to Zimbabwe once he got some assurance from the government there that he'd be safe. It's possible that his old friend Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia, who arrives coincidentally in Britain tomorrow, will be able to mediate. Certainly, Mr. Nkomo seems eager to keep lines of communication with Zimbabwe open. In his interview with Jeremy Paxman, he was anxious to stress the need for reconciliation and to downplay the dangers of tribal war.
Dr. Nkomo, on reflection, do you think that it was right for you to leave Zimbabwe?
Well, I don't think it needs any reflection. It was a question of threat to my life. I had to leave, I had to be somewhere in order that I'm able to try and help in settling the problem that had arisen.
There was no doubt in your mind that your life was in danger?
I don't think there is anybody who is in doubt. For 3 people having been killed in my house, it was quite obvious what would have happened if I had remained.
Where do you believe the threat to your life came from?
Well, it came from the 5th Brigade when they invaded my house and ransacked it and killed the 3 people in the house.
What's your view of the 5th Brigade?
Well, I think I did say my point when it was being formed. I said it to the Prime Minister that it was a pity a brigade outside the National Army was being formed, and that I feared it would be used as a political army apart from the National Army. It appears it is being used so.
Many people suggest that it's a tribal army.
Well, it could be a tribal army, but in fact not a Shona tribal army, as some people say it is. Some people believe that because the 5th Brigade is made up of Shona-speaking young people, and therefore its actions are actions of the Shona against Ndebele. I think this is a misrepresentation. I don't think it is so.
There are many people in Matabeleland who believe that when they're confronted by a Shona section of the army, their Ndebeles, that then that is a tribal issue.
Well, when you're confronted by people who speak a language and they do harm to your life, yes, you do come to wonder whether it is not a tribal and complete Shona against Ndebele. But here I am talking as one who knows that in fact it is not so. It is a mistake for anybody to believe that the Shona have organized against Ndebele. This is not so.
If it's not a tribal issue, then what is it?
It could be a political issue, as I said earlier, to the Prime Minister when it was being formed. I said I feared it could be a political party army. And this possibly is what it is.
I'd like to stop there. Sorry about the quality. I couldn't play it on my laptop there. But I think it is important to understand that the Gukurahundi massacre was not a tribal motivated move. It was a party motivated move. In other words, this was a ZANU-PF project that benefited ZANU-PF. And many of the ordinary people who may have been members, ordinary Zimbabwean, who have been members of ZANU-PF or who were not members of ZANU-PF, but from the Shona grouping, have not benefited from what ZANU-PF did. In fact, in hindsight, the whole nation has not benefited from what ZANU-PF did. ZANU-PF, Robert Mugabe, and these cronies were pushing an agenda to promote the idea of a one-party state. In the end, Dr. Nkomo and his friends in PF ZAPU were forced to sign the Unity Accord of 1987. And that paved the way for the imposition of the de facto one-party state that has ruled Zimbabwe to this day. Except maybe for the top leaders in that unified ZANU-PF, most of the ordinary people have definitely suffered because Zimbabwe became a one-party state. I've said on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state because we have failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections for 45 years and counting. I totally agree with what Dr. Nkomo was saying there, that Mugabe's number one agenda in Gukurahundi was to force PF ZAPU to give up its right to exist as a distinct political party. Mugabe knew that if his economic policies failed to deliver the economic prosperity, which ZANU-PF did fail to deliver, as we already know, then of course, the most likely party that was going to benefit from ZANU-PF's failure was PF ZAPU. It was the next biggest party in the country. And so it constituted a political threat to Mugabe and his cronies' hold on power. Mugabe and his cronies have always believed that they have the divine right to rule the country. And they've showed a willingness to do anything and everything to achieve that goal, including launching this Gukurahundi massacre. Later on, they carried out the 2008 electoral coup. And all along, ZANU-PF has used brute force to impose the de facto one-party state. This is the reality that the nation has faced. This is the reality that we are facing even today. Yes, a lot of have been said about the Unity Accord, the 1987 Unity Accord. It was sold to the nation as unity. And anyone who threatened that unity was punished. The truth of the matter is there was just the silencing, stifling of all meaningful political debate and democratic discourse. That was the primary purpose. And that is what it has achieved. Right now, Mnangagwa, ever since he took over from Mugabe in 2017, he too has been emphasizing on the need for unity, for development. All it really means is silencing all his critics under the pretext that the critics or anyone who comments on his performance are undermining development. The pity, the tragedy for Zimbabwe is 45 years after independence, we are still failing to come up with a political solution of how to govern ourselves. At the end of the day, ZANU-PF that is able to rig elections is accountable to no one. And this has allowed mismanagement and corruption to become rampant. We should establish the reality that no one has the divine right to rule the country. The right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country is more than just a right. It is the essence of good governance. Zimbabwe is a failed state because we have denied ourselves the ability to remove leaders who, after they've been elected on the promise of doing A, B, C, D, the people can judge them to say they have failed and elect somebody else. That is what a meaningful vote means. The ultimate expression of free, fair, and credible election is that the people should be able to remove those in positions of power and authority and put somebody else. Being stuck with the same leaders has not helped us. Right now, the country is engrossed as Mnangagwa is trying to force down the nation's throat the idea that he should stay in power beyond the 2028 date, when he would have served his maximum 2 terms, according to the Constitution. He is trying to stay on under the pretext that he has proven to be so competent and is the only one who can guarantee the delivery of Vision 2030, in which the country will be an upper middle income nation. Ironically, we were an upper middle income nation in 1980 when we gained our independence. But 45 years of ZANU-PF gross mismanagement have seen the nation's wealth dwindle. Per capita gross domestic product today is 1/3 of what it was in 1980. That is how far we have slipped down. The very idea that Mnangagwa should be allowed to stay on beyond 2028 without the people having a meaningful say is absurd. Because to start with, 2023, Mnangagwa did not have the people's vote. Those elections were not free, fair, and credible. The MDC that people had elected these last 25 years for the primary purpose of implementing democratic reforms to end ZANU-PF's carte blanche powers to rig elections, they failed to implement even one token reform. SADC and AU election observers condemned the 2023 elections as flawed and illegal. But they could not deny ZANU-PF legitimacy because the people participated in those elections in their millions. Nearly 2 million people voted for Chamisa, according to SAC results. Chamisa had conned the people to believe that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes, and Chamisa and his Triple C were going to win big. They did not. And the idea that we are going to go into 2028 without any meaningful reforms implemented can only mean one thing. 2028 will be a repeat of 2023. It is a pity that 45 years after independence, we are still grappling with the issue of how to govern ourselves. We are a failed state because we have failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections for the last 45 years. It is a pity. It is truly tragic that we got ourselves to this. I'll just play the concluding part of that interview in which Robert Mugabe admits to some of the wrongdoings that happened in Zimbabwe.
Careful handling, it needs patience, it needs objectivity, that type of thing. I think we need that.
The problem can't really be solved as long as you're outside the country, can it?
Did I say I was coming to stay here permanently? Didn't I say when I first arrived here and that I'll be here temporarily, I'll be going home? My plans have not changed.
We used to be pride, not just of Zimbabwe, but of our region, SADC. But we are not that anymore. We are a disgrace to ourselves, a disgrace to our community, sadly, a disgrace to Africa.
Well, that is an honest admission. We are truly a disgrace to ourselves, to our region, and to Africa. The question is, are we going to put an end to this madness? The solution is staring us in the face. We can stop this madness by sitting down and insisting on free, fair, and credible elections. Let every Zimbabwean have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Why some people still believe that they can win flawed elections that are so flawed, there is not even a verified voters roll, beggars belief. But that's where we are. We can put an end to this madness. We can't look on to ZANU-PF because ZANU-PF has invested interest in rigging the elections so that they can stay in power. We cannot look to Chamisa and company because now they've got an invested interest in the status quo. Because as long as they participate, ZANU-PF will give them a share of the Gravitrans seats. We have to look to ourselves. We, the ordinary people, we have absolutely nothing to gain from this madness of rigged elections. We have everything to gain from putting an end to it. And all we've got to do is stop being so naive and gullible that we are conned into participating in flawed elections because somebody said, I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. It is just unbelievable how many times we have been so easily conned. The question is, can Zimbabwe, can we as a people finally get it right and put an end to the madness of rigged elections and bad governance? Thank you. Have a good day.